cutting growth hormone out. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Kurt's like, fuck this. And we've had these discussions like high dose growth hormone is causing distension, but
I've been on nothing less than 3 milligrams of GH for 4.5 years. Doesn't make your stomach grow. There's no medical documentation of stomach growth from growth hormone. It doesn't grow the intestines to compensate. It allows better absorption of nutrition through the intestines. Your liver can't generally produce enough IGF from GH that your pituitary is putting out in order to cause organ growth. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I always found it funny when they were blaming GH bubble guts on insulin and growth hormone.
Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 24. This is the 2-year anniversary, but we're a month late because the last time we recorded is 2 months ago. And, life happens, things get busy, get in the way. But here we are. We're going to discuss the gut prevention or gut distension prevention tier list, which we wanted to include with the acne tier list, but acne was so long that after 2 hours, we need a little vacation. And then Dean went on vacation also. In the meantime, I have a vacation due. Before we get started, Kurt, I heard you launched a new website. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I'm intrigued about what you and AJ Sims have on offer.
So AJ Sims and I, or Cement Factory, as he goes by on Instagram, and I've been close for a couple of years now, and we realized that the place in the industry that seems to need the most help is like the lifestyle guy, not so much the competitor stuff. And it's a video series that revolves around, it's called The Optimized Man. So it revolves around basically making you a better husband, father, partner, leader, businessman, outside of the traditional bodybuilding stuff. We touch on TRT and TRT plus and blood work and estrogen and all those common things, but more from a lifestyle point of view. It's not so chemically driven. And then we touch on relationship stuff, how to maintain a healthy marriage, how to be successful, what success actually looks like, what health actually looks like, mental wellness looks like, and stuff like that. And then we'll do a live Q&A once a month for the people that join. So it's you can either buy a yearly subscription or you can do a monthly payment plan. We're trying to make it accessible to as many people as we can.
Right.
So we'll put the link, I guess, down below for that stuff.
Right. So it's a little bit more balanced approach, and it's completely different from what you did with Paul Barnett. Right?
Yeah, it's like the opposite of that stuff.
Okay, yeah. So people know that like Kurt is like, we're gonna go get some drug information, but it's mostly for TRT and lifestyle, and just having a little bit more balanced approach to life. And AJ's been married, 20 years also?
Perhaps longer than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. That's
yeah, we kind of came with a lot of things, AJ and I come to the same conclusion, maybe from a different path, but we always seem to end up in the same place. And, in it, we include even stuff like, instead of like having guys obsessing about, like kind of what I was talking about Niall yesterday, about the obsession with all these metrics that really don't matter. Like, I hate to say it. I know. Like, for a lifestyle guy, you don't have to weigh and measure your food. Like, if that's really what you need to do to function, fine. But
portions is fine. Yeah.
I weigh and measure my food when I compete. I don't need to weigh and measure my food. It does nothing but add time, distraction, and addiction to your day.
It's irrelevant.
I'm not checking my blood sugar. I'm not checking my blood pressure all the time. Like, if my blood pressure is good, what am I checking it daily for? All these things. And we go over like simple ways to eat a balanced diet without busting out the food scale.
Right.
Just simple techniques to make guys' lives easier and not more complicated. And I feel like it's the opposite of what else is in the space. The space is, let's sell the most complicated things. You're so confused that you need coaching. Right? Like, there's no way you can figure this out without paying someone for help. We're doing the opposite. You're the easy way to do it. That's how you sell the dream. You got to sell the dream of like neurotic OCD autistic behavior. And, then people get so lost that they don't have time for anything else. That's the bodybuilding life, Kurt. So that's the complete opposite. You're going to break that mold.
Give people a little bit of room to breathe.
Go back to what it used to be. It doesn't need to be that crazy.
Okay, that's good. So that's linked down below, and it's called The Optimized Man?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'll link that down below, guys, in case you're interested. And it's a video series, and you got some sort of forum where you can discuss, or?
At the moment, there's just the videos. AJ and I talked about him becoming part of my forum, but never quite lined up. So not a big deal. But like I said, there's live Q&A, so people can ask us the questions and stuff, and we'll answer them live on a video once a month.
Cool. So that's linked down below. Dean, what's new with you? I heard you got your face beaten in again.
So I've a nice broken. Something's not right with my thumb either. Ligaments are damaged or whatever. It was broken. It was put back into place. I don't know, but second place in the world.
Congrats! It's not first place, but it's you're moving up.
We talked about this, that to me from when I was younger, I'd rather come last. Now people are probably going to be shocked by this, but I'd rather come last than come second sometimes. And just for the sole fact that second can be such a hard place to accept, that you're so close to winning and getting gold, that if you came last or you didn't place, at least you can go, well, they were better fighters than me. But
you were second on points, right? So it's still opinion. You need to talk with Jay Cutler about this. I'm sure he can relate to second places the most.
and I mean, it's a great achievement. I mean, I had a lot of fights to go through to the finals. So there was obviously the breakout rounds and then the quarter semis. Second place in points, second place in Kumite traditional karate. It was enjoyable. I think the preparation time for it and the training involved very different to kickboxing, very different to a bodybuilding setup like kickboxing training, because you've got a lot of like conditioning, sparring, and everything else. And it was just nice. It was nice to go away to a competition and just be a ghost. No one knows.
Yeah, I would expect some whoring on Instagram for this, but I saw nothing. I saw a post today where you were like fighting a little bit on your Instagram stories, but why didn't you document the journey? And where were the discount codes for fighting pads and bite bits?
I think, to be honest, from even like a nervous perspective, I got quite nervous. Obviously, about how big like WKU is a big organization for kickboxing and karate. Compared to the past, like with bodybuilding, you get a little bit nervous before, like the day before a show, but you sort of know in your mind that with bodybuilding, it's in the judges' hands. Like you do all your work and your prep and everything, but at the end of the day, it's up to the judges' opinion. In like martial arts and that competition setting, there's a clear winner. You're either the better fighter or you weren't. And there's no, like, you can't blame, like, okay, yeah, some referees' calls can be a bit dodgy, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You can't argue someone was better than you. Whereas in bodybuilding, it could be like, oh, well, I thought I had bigger legs or better conditioning or whatever else. To have no one really know who I was, because obviously I was out of like the kickboxing scene for 15, 16 years. There was no red
carpet and like $10,000 fee that was paid for a seminar. You're spoiled, man, in the bodybuilding space. I know what it feels like. You get everything expensed and, warm welcome.
As the week went on, obviously people started to either Google my name or they sort of found out who I was in like the bodybuilding space or from Instagram. So probably the next couple of years, if I continue competing, it'll probably be a different story where people start picking you up on Instagram and whatever. But it was nice to even like that, switch off from my phone, not having to take videos and having to do stories, just put up a picture every couple of days or so to show where you were. But it was nice to remove myself from like the bodybuilding and fitness scene for a few days.
Yeah, so you were present instead of through the screen.
Yeah, and I mean that's what kickboxing martial arts is no different to bodybuilding. Like you've got guys who are there videoing every single fight and watching every single fight through their phone instead of through their own eyes. Obviously to gather data, like you watch back fights and learn, what your mistakes were.
Right. And see how your opponents fight and bring a little bit of strategy to the next fight. Yeah. Learn
for future, but like that, it was really nice to like I didn't video, other people videoed, like I went away with my brother, so other people videoed his fight, so I could be present to coach him. And in the same way, I coached some of the kids' team, and I had like one world champion in Kumite, which was really cool. Like you've got this 9-10-year-old boy winning a world, championships in Kumite, and like the look on his face, and getting him through the qualifying rounds to the final. You might not walk away with a gold medal, but to actually get to experience coaching someone through it, like when I was younger, you sort of see the older generation who are the coaches, so you're obviously ending up in that position much later on yourself. There's a lot of fulfillment to being on the coach's side as opposed to being the guy in the ring getting your head punched off.
Of course. Yeah, that makes it more sustainable also. But through coaching, you can kind of have longevity in the sport after you retired.
Yeah.
Or you become a YouTube influencer. And maybe you could do that for, Kumite.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of your respect tends to come from being a coach, obviously as a fighter as well, but from a coach, because coaching fighters, like part of it is obviously personal talent, but the other side is obviously the coach being able to see the openings in the opponent, or being able to assess the situation to tell the fighter, oh, this is what's coming, or do this and you're going to score a point. So
right.
You sort of you get well known for being a good coach as well as a good fighter. So we'll see. We've got another competition in Austria in the middle of September. So back to the drawing board for that.
Oh, really? Okay. Now we need to make sure that we time the podcast correctly then, because I'm going to go somewhere for a wedding early September, and then end of September is the Mr. Olympia. So middle of September is when we can record again. But we'll coordinate in the WhatsApp group. I'm kind of closing on a house, so it has nothing to do with bodybuilding. 5,000 square meters, 5,000 square foot, 460 square meters, with about similar size land for a garden. And so I'm losing all of my bodybuilding knowledge for selecting for a kitchen countertop between granite and marble, and so the whole day, me and my wife were like going through selecting what we want in our house, and it's a gigantic project.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you that. Yeah,
we have marble. We've had marble for this house 11 years old. Mm-hmm. As long as you take care of it, you don't let people spill lemon juice and stuff on it.
Yeah, or methylene.
It actually ages really nicely versus granite. It doesn't ever really age. It kind of just stays shiny and.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So we have marble here in this kitchen. It's 7 or 8 years old now. We got like a couple stains. So, right, and then we're going through all the options, because this house we didn't really want to invest because we knew it was going to be temporary, but this will be a long-term house with kids. So we're going all in, and I got a fat discount of $200,000 on it.
Nice.
Yeah, I negotiated so hard. So it means we have $200,000 for the interior design, and that's going to be pretty damn epic. I saw like they have a micro LED wall, so that those are panels, right? But that's like $64,000, so that's not what we're going to spend the money on for a home cinema. But as you're going through all the options and then upselling yourself, like, okay, I want these kinds of air conditionings. Those are good, but these have better energy ratings, but they're more expensive. So I'm continuously upselling myself for the better options. So it's going to cost a fortune. Yeah, and I can't get a mortgage, so I gotta pay cash.
It's fine.
Yeah. So that's the point we're at. I'm less time to research on bodybuilding stuff, but more time to research on the forever home. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And with that being said, let's get into the tier list before people lose interest. As usual, we have the S tier to the F tier. I made a couple notes or a couple suggestions of what we can discuss. I don't want to spend too much time on each because, again, I have about 1.5 hours left, and then I got some stuff to do. So let's just get into it. I'll go through my list top to bottom. And if you guys want to interject something for the tier list, then please, by all means, throw it in there. So let's start with an irritable bowel syndrome, intestinal bacterial overgrowth, celiac, lactose intolerance diagnosis. So we know if something is going on, and you can do that with a stool examination or a blood test or some other diagnosis. Where do we rank this on the tier list, and would we add something to that regarding the diagnosis of potential gut distension or gut problems? I know Dean's on the edge of his seats because he's got celiac.
Yes, well, it makes, so I tell you what, in hindsight, when I was 2017, the last year I competed alongside my wife, she'd be always like to me, tuck in that belly when I would be posing. I'm like, what do you mean by tuck in my belly? And you think that you'd have
through all of
it. So you
that thing needs to be seen. That needs to be mentioned.
You know what when it comes to like posing, some of it can be laziness where you don't learn proper diaphragmatic breathing for like the quarter turns. And then obviously when you turn to the back to do back double or rear double bicep, turning to the side to do side chest or side tricep, depending on the order of the poses and the federation you're doing, you'd quickly learn that the judges are always looking for ways to mark you down. And if your belly's hanging out and you're transitioning around, they're making a note of that. So she'd always be like, why is your stomach so bloated? And back then there was no like GH, no nothing in sort of my setup. I'm like, I'm really like not trying to do that with my belly. Like I'm trying to control my diaphragm. I'm trying to control my TVA and my core. And then sure enough, obviously I was diagnosed celiac. So what was happening was that those years I was competing, the stomach distension was intestinal inflammation.
Yeah.
If we were to rank it, this is where like, okay, celiac disease, gluten intolerance, all those sort of, if you want to like non-celiac wheat sensitivity, if you want to umbrella all these things, it's very hard to catch on blood tests. So you can do a transglutaminase IgA antibody to see, do you make autoimmune antibodies to, I guess, what's one of the main proteins in wheat or gluten, gliadin. And then transglutaminase basically is an enzyme that helps your body to facilitate glutamine transport to repair your gut cells. So doing that test, you can have a false negative because of the epitope of the antibody. So if you do the antibody test and it's not the same antibody as what you're expressing, as far as I can remember from reading into it, there's about 6 epitopes of this antibody. If you don't make the specific one that the test is testing for, it'll flag as a false negative that you're not celiac, when you clearly know from symptoms like shitting yourself or, having really bad digestive stress from gluten that you have suspicions that you are. That's where you can do more specific tests, and that those who have celiac disease tend to have what are called endomycin antibodies, EMA, or what you'll find is you have low serum IgA, because IgA is made in your throat and in your gut. So if you have a low serum IgA value on a blood test, you can be confident that something's not right in the immune system that's causing a low IgA response, and it's normally celiac disease. You can do stool tests that would look at lysozyme, lactoferrin, calprotectin, these measures of intestinal inflammation that might give you an insight into celiac or Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, whatever.
And of course, your gut microbiome can be mapped with a stool examination, so that would help with things like SIBO or even IBS. Yeah, because some of the bacteria, if the ratios are off, can cause irritable bowel syndrome as well.
And one of the things that I always lean into if someone has SIBO or has celiac issues, quite often it's a stomach acidity problem, because your stomach acid is the barrier to your gut. Like your stomach acidity, yes, it digests your food, but it's to kill microbes. And even what you'll often see on stool tests are oral microbiome bacteria. So from plaque or from bacteria in your mouth. So Streptococcus species that would be in your mouth end up in a GI map. And you then can start questioning, well, the only way that that oral bacteria could be growing in an opportunistic fashion in your gut is because your stomach acid isn't killing it. So you're swallowing your saliva and the bacteria is ending up in your gut. They can be useful markers to see for like gluten sensitivity or milk protein sensitivity. But like if you were to rank them, because of the nuance to the data of what comes from a blood test or a stool test, I don't think it'd be like S tier, because you're going to have some level of false negatives to these tests. And then
you might need multiple things to diagnose what's going on, because if you can't detect celiac disease with a blood test or stool examination, then you need to follow an elimination diet, and that's something separate, like a food allergy test, elimination diet. I all got that listed separately here. So you might need a combination of all three before they separately turn into S tier.
I mean, for me personally, we've talked about it a lot of times, but for those who didn't hear the story, with my celiac diagnosis, it was basically I had a blood test 12 weeks post-prep in 2023, and my cholesterol was sky high. So for UK measurements...
Triglycerides also, right?
Yeah, my triglycerides were like 9. And in US terms, that's like 750, 800. And I remember sending it to you, sending it to a few other friends. I'm like scratching my head going...
I thought you had NAFLD.
Yeah, it's all right. That's right. I thought it was fatty liver disease. And I'm like, but everything else looked perfect. Just the triglycerides and cholesterol.
Yeah.
And then we retested 2 weeks later, same result. We retested immediately, same result. And then retested 2 weeks later, and the cholesterol value dropped by half. And I'm like, something has changed between the two tests. But it wasn't obvious at the time until...
It was loaves of bread that you didn't eat.
Yeah, eating bread with having the flu. Eating bread and eggs, scrambled egg and bread, or toast. Where normally I wouldn't eat bread. Like, I'd eat bread every now and again, but I had a suspicion anytime I ate bagels, my stomach would blow out, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I don't respond too well to bread and wheat, but you're not putting the finger on celiac disease, that your gut is being eaten from the inside out.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, it then made sense all historically why I had the pregnant belly competing sometimes, and why, after a high carb day of eating, breakfast cereals with barley malt extract and maybe, a bagel or whatever, a Rice Krispie square, why my body was just in the bin with like tiredness, brain fog and everything else. So I think the data can be useful, but sometimes it can hide it. And obviously every time I had a blood test and wasn't eating gluten, my cholesterol was immaculate. So you're like saying, like, that's one of the useful things, that when you get an anomaly like that, you're going, okay, something deeper is going on here. But if I was to
and then you need to get lucky, because the timing of the bread, like your pre-blood work injection of gluten, needs to match up. Otherwise, you don't catch it.
Yeah.
Right? Same as how people match their growth hormone and testosterone shots to their blood work. You need to kind of match your bread intake to the blood work. Otherwise, you don't. I mean, a couple of days later, it would be, or a week later, the markers would be normal again.
When I went to my GP, because obviously I was diagnosed privately, he was like to me, yeah, but we're going to have to do a challenge test to prove it on our side, like publicly. I'm like, I ain't eating no gluten. You can like, because obviously I'd been gluten free for a long while, and then I had an exposure and fully understood that I was celiac. I said to him, you can't pay me to eat a donut. And I said to him, if you don't believe me, then you're going to take it on board that if I go out and I get a bagel and I sit here and eat it in front of you and I start getting sick, that you're responsible for me getting sick. And he's like, no. And he started writing the referral to the gastroenterologist.
I want none of this responsibility on me.
Yeah, all of a sudden I had a referral to the gastroenterologist with celiac disease. Like,
smart.
It's, you have to do that if you do suspect that you have celiac disease. You have to do a gluten challenge. But on the other side, the last time I had a blood test, they checked all my antibody markers. So they checked transglutaminase IgA, EMA, some of the liver. When you're getting it done, you just tell them, just put the full screen of autoimmune markers on. And my transglutaminase IgA antibodies were non-existent. And, they'd try and reframe that, oh, look, you're not celiac. You're like, no, I've put that into remission from avoiding gluten for the last 2.5 years.
Right.
Autoimmune antibody titers will drop over time if you take stress away from the immune system.
That's the whole point of doing a food allergy test. And you'll see what if you do like a blood test for food allergy, then you'll see that most of the foods that you eat frequently have elevated immunoglobulins, and so you can flag them easily. And then you take them out for a certain amount of months, and those immunoglobulins will come down. The inflammatory response to the digestive issues should not come back for a while. So, for example, I avoided eggs for 6 months after doing a food allergy test. Then I could eat them again. And now 1 year into it, I feel that this food allergy is coming back of daily eggs. Yeah. So if I were to do a food allergy test now, I'm sure eggs would be flagged. If I were to do a food allergy test 6 months after stopping eating the eggs, all of the immunoglobulins would be low because I didn't eat eggs. So that makes it a little bit tricky. But I do think that if you suspect an issue and you combine a test for IBS or SIBO or celiac disease or lactose intolerance with a stool examination and, again, this is going to cost you, and a food allergy test, at least it allows you to pinpoint what's going on and have like a fast track roadmap to what you need to address. Because sometimes you don't really know. And of course you could fast for a week and do an elimination diet, but an elimination diet is a little bit difficult if you don't know which foods to eliminate.
I always bring up the example, would have been September 22 during that second last prep. I knew there was something not right with my gut, but like I said, I could never pinpoint it. So I done an Alex screen, which is a IgE and IgG allergy screen.
Yeah.
And it showed no allergies other than hogweed, which is rampant around where we live. Hogweed pollen, I had like a +1. Okay, maybe get a little bit of a runny nose in the summer from hay fever, but it showed nothing towards wheat, oats, whatever you want to choose. It was completely spotless. And yet, at that time, I was more than likely full-blown celiac. So you have to then view that a food sensitivity or a food allergy is very different towards like an autoimmunity to a food. And that's where even now with the celiac disease, I can't have milk protein. If I have milk protein, my body has like an inflammatory response and I hold fluid. We've seen that when I went on holiday after that last prep. I put on like
I saw the pictures.
16 pounds of water, and that was just from eating protein puddings, like milk protein puddings. That having an allergy and an immune reaction to a food also can be completely different in that an allergy or an intolerance might lead to someone having malabsorption or diarrhea or signs of stress within the GI, whereas a food allergy, I guess, rather than intolerance, a food allergy, you'll see things like inflammation, fluid retention. You'll see the immune system actually respond to the allergic response, which obviously is normally a histamine reaction or the immune system trying to find a pathogen which doesn't really exist. That you might then think, with milk, that classically it'd be associated with lactose intolerance and, shitting yourself. But like I've said before, if you have like a deep sock band at the end of the day, it could be an allergy to one of the foods you're eating, which is causing a histamine or a fluid retention. And you see it with milk. One of the things that milk causes is lymph stagnation. It causes your lymph to stagnate and not pump properly, which will cause fluid to accumulate in your legs.
Especially in the lower body. Yeah.
And that's where, like, magically some people often say, you know, they take out whey protein or concentrate the week of prep, and all of a sudden my legs are super dry, and it's just because you've taken some of that immune response away, and the lymph is now fully pumping properly.
Right. You can actually drain the garbage. Yeah, so it makes it hard to classify because it all goes hand in hand. If you have an issue and it's undiagnosed, you might have to do all of it to kind of come to a higher truth. And then basically everything is S tier because doing all of it will fix it. But doing them separately might be A, B, C, D, or F tier because it doesn't give you any clear answers until you have the answer. And then, of course, testing for IBS was worth it, even though you were not. It ended up not being IBS. It ended up a lactose intolerance, for example. You have to go through the ringer to kind of get to a higher truth because it's very difficult. And again, a food elimination diet, what I usually recommend people to do if they can't afford all the testing, just means you go fasting first for a week, take out all the garbage, remove the inflammation, the intestinal upset, just reset. And then start reintroducing foods which you think are the least likely culprit. For some guys, they might need to do a carnivore diet because carnivore, like animal meat sources, are the easiest on your digestion, even beef. And then you reintroduce the vegetables and starchy carbs and the fruits and all that stuff a little bit later on. Again, based on what you think might be the least likely culprit of your intestinal problems. Now, an elimination diet and a carnivore diet doesn't fix bacterial overgrowth. And so you would still need to do a stool examination. So sometimes it can be very, very hard to pinpoint what the cause is. But I'm very happy that I did it 2 years ago, where I just did everything and knew exactly how to address it. And my intestinal digestion has been good up until like maybe the last couple of weeks, where I felt that the eggs weren't really sitting well and they're not just digesting properly. And today I kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to finish the eggs that we have and then take it out for 3 months and then see if that fixes it.
Yeah,
and otherwise I'll do another food allergy test and just pay the $500, whatever, you know. Kurt, do you have any issues with digestion or distension?
No, see it.
No. Yeah. So you can, but you know what you eat and what you can't eat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just group it all together and put it in S tier. But if you don't do it together, it would be further down the line because it doesn't help in the diagnosis, right? So just because you tested for celiac disease and it gave you a negative, doesn't mean you don't have it, and doesn't mean you don't have to look further.
Yeah, I mean, even to touch on like what I said before, what like oats, gluten-free oats still have gluten. Like there's a venin protein in gluten in oats. So back then when my stomach was upset with competing, really the only source of daily gluten in my prep diet was oats. And even if they were gluten-free, oats themselves still have a gluten protein called a venin, which cross-reacts in your gut. So quite often when you go to like that elimination diet, carbohydrate-wise, rice has like 3% of its protein as a gluten called orizenin. So you still might even react to rice when you do an elimination. But normally, elimination diet means rice, buckwheat, quinoa, and potatoes. They're like your your lower inflammation causing foods, you want to put it that way.
Yeah, and safer bits. Yeah.
Safer. And then, you know, vegetables, even with FODMAPs, I have this conversation all the time in consults. People look at a low and high FODMAP chart, you know, foods, and you'll have like foods that are red and foods that are green. The foods that are green do have low FODMAP content, but it's all about serving size. And the one that always comes up, and this might be useful for those who are listening, blueberries, classic bodybuilding food, you know, high antioxidants, you know, you've got all your anthocyanins and everything else while you take in your blueberries. But blueberries are only a low FODMAP food up to about a 40-gram serving. When you go like to a punnet, like 200 grams that anyone would just lash on to like Greek yogurt or whatever, that is
only 22 grams of carbs.
You know,
200
but
grams.
then But then you looked at that 22 grams is high FODMAP. Like it's a high.
There's a lot of fiber. That's the whole point. It's a it's a high fiber, low carbohydrate food.
so then you start seeing that the foods that should be green and shouldn't cause problems, if you've got gut dysbiosis and you're following a low FODMAP diet, blueberries 40 grams, courgette, zucchini 60 grams is low FODMAP, and you know guys are putting like a full zucchini or full courgette into a meal, which is 200 grams or whatever.
Pumpkin, right? Pumpkin is also low FODMAP, but then people like to eat that instead of other carb sources because it's so low, and then they go with 500 grams of pumpkin. Yeah, of course you're gonna have issues.
So when it comes to even food selection, you have to pay attention to like serving size and how the gut responds to that food. So yeah. It's useful that the food elimination diet, as boring as it is, allows you to yes or no, does that food cause a problem or not? And if you can be diligent, like you said, either do a fast for a week or a minimal food volume for a week, and then really, if you want to see an impact of a food on your system, you need at least probably 4 weeks of that food being eliminated.
Yeah.
And then test it. And if it's a problem, if it's going to cause a food allergy or a food intolerance or whatever way you want to view it, within about 60 to 90 minutes of eating that single food, whether it's a gluten food or a dairy or whatever, you'll start to see changes either, immunologically, physically, mentally. You'll see everything sort of manifest that you'll know if that food is a trigger or not. It's not going to be like the next day. You'll know immediately if you've removed it for a long enough period of time that it causes the reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could be water retention, could be shortness of breath, could be distension, all these little trigger points. And it's usually pretty easy to pinpoint. Definitely by the time you eat your next meal, there should be something off. And that's how I noticed with the eggs. Like, you know what, it's kind of sitting there, I feel a bit, I don't know, bubbly in my stomach. So it's time to take the eggs out, which sucks because I love eggs. But yeah, it's just one of those food, some like chicken in some countries. Like chicken is in some, like America, for example, a lot of people have issues with chicken. And I don't know if that's the food industry, but as soon as they take the chicken out, digestion and gut distension improves significantly. Right. So you just have to be mindful of what you're eating. And especially if you're following a bodybuilding diet where you're eating the same fucking food sources every single day, you might be giving yourself some sort of issue by exposing yourself to something that's in the food, especially at the portion size that we have. Because we have 8 ounces of chicken maybe 3 times a day. That's it. It's 20 ounces of fucking same food that you're consuming.
In the US, it's probably not just the chicken, it's the quality of the chicken, right? Bodybuilders are buying gigantic packages of it from Walmart. Why anyone would eat meat that comes from Walmart, I don't know. Right?
No, I know. So that's what's
for the market. They get the last pick of those animals. Those are the sick, dying birds that eat trash. You eat what they eat.
No, I know. When I went to the U.S. grocery stores, like some of the grocery stores, when you see the chicken, especially the bulk sizes, the meat looks sick.
Oh, it's gross.
And you're like, this doesn't look right. And then you go to a nice
it's the quality of the chicken.
Yeah, it's like the whole food chains that looks like the chicken that I know from Europe and here in Thailand, So yeah, look at the food before you consume it. It could tell you if the food looks off, it's probably off.
It's off.
So do you guys incorporate like occasional fasting or full fasting? Because I fast every 3 months. And I feel that it makes such a difference in my digestion, but also my waist circumference and my overall digestion afterwards. So every 3 months, like I just did one in the middle of the year a couple of weeks ago, and just everything improves. But a lot of people are scared to do it because catabolic and I lose strength and that kind of stuff. But I never really noticed that. I don't really notice, okay, you lose size. Obviously, the scale goes down because you lose so much intestinal mass and inflammation and water retention. But even when I schedule it with a deload, as soon as I get back to the gym, I'm just as strong. But maybe that's the muscle maturity and the time that I have in the gym. Do you guys do any fasting or schedule it in with clients?
Depends on the person. I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have people do it.
Yeah.
I've
Now,
had
do
a
you feel that it
few-
makes a dramatic difference?
It can if they have gut issues
Yeah. Right.
or
Yeah.
if they have an emotional attachment to food, right? Instead of just using GLPs all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's too difficult. The fast.
Way too difficult. Bodybuilding's
it's-
easy.
Yeah. It sucks,
There's no
man, fasting.
sacrifices there.
It is horrible. I will tell you that. Especially after day 3, you're kind of sitting there like, I want something, but you can't have it.
I'm the opposite. My record for fasting has been nearly, I think it was 138 hours. It was
That's
like six,
5.5 days. Yeah. Yeah.
It was, so what normally happened, I've done, I think, 3 over 5-day fasts.
Yeah.
The first 40 hours is always the toughest because when you get to about hour 42, your liver glycogen basically starts to drop off and your body's sort of getting ready to enter ketosis. You get quite dehydrated. Your blood sugar starts swinging while it's trying to manage, swapping over to ketones. But whenever I've gotten to like day 5, that's when all hell breaks loose for me personally, in that my bowel turns like a tap.
Yeah.
To bile flow. Obviously something happens, but about day 5, either it's that I've got too much lipolysis occurring where I've got too much triglycerides or fatty acids being released into the bloodstream that the liver is not processing properly. It's reaching my gut. My gut's gone, right, time to flush this, because it just ends up being bile. And
Yeah, your intestinal wall is clean after 5 days. There's nothing in there to bind the bile acids anymore. So it just
that's it.
flushes
It
through.
just keeps flushing, and then to me that then becomes more time disturbing because literally every 2 hours you get the urge, you have to run to the bathroom. But for a certain extent that it is quote unquote cleaning, or like it's fat mixed with bile that your body is flushing out, because literally by about day 4, day 5, you can start to see your body's condition in terms of like fat mass start to change. I've always wanted to do see if I can get to a week, 7 days, but I get to that point.
6.5 is the longest I could stomach. So for me, it's very easy to fast the first 3 days because I'm already in ketosis, so I don't need to switch. But I get very anxious towards the end because it's almost over, and I do get a little bit hungry. So the last day, sometimes I don't make it to the 5.5 day where you wake up at Saturday. Well, you start on Monday, you're already 8 hours in technically because you stopped your last meal on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then by Friday evening, I'm super anxious to go to bed, and then you can't sleep because I'm in such deep ketosis that it's hard to fall asleep. So yeah, I do like fasting a lot for controlling your stomach and the overall quality of your gut, but it is pretty brutal. Where would you guys rank it? Fasting in the overall picture of gut
B,
distension
C?
prevention.
I would say
Okay.
B.
Okay.
I mean, I've done it before with clients where they've been in a fat loss phase and they clearly have problems, like immune system problems with gluten or dairy, and they do their best to avoid it. And let's say they go on vacation or they go to an event and they've had some level of cross contamination, and you can see in their weight trend where it goes up 4 or 5 pounds, and you're sort of looking at that fluid retention or fluid inflammation that you explain to them about the process and what's going on with the immune system. And once they sort of see the theory behind it, they commit to 48 hours fasting, and all of a sudden their baseline weight is like a pound lower than their previous low. And they're sort of thinking, wow, that's how much inflammation or what impact inflammation has to your body towards a cellular fluid response. So normally I'll use in that regard when you see someone needs a reset, get the immune system to calm down and deal with some of that fluid retention.
Yeah, and the good thing about 2-day fast is that it sucks or takes away a lot of visceral fat. So for the guys that do have visceral fat, and visceral fat, for bodybuilders that do frequent diets, is not really an issue because it seems to be one of the first things that goes away. And that's what your body kind of catabolizes first, unless you really have a lot. You had a fat long off season, a lot of intra-workout carbs and a boatload of insulin. Fasting once a week for 24 hours is a really great way to get rid of the visceral fat over time. That seems to be pretty doable. After a refeed, your next day, your appetite is kind of, not so good anyway because you're so full. So I've incorporated that with a lot of guys that had some distension, which you suspect from visceral fat early on in the prep or the diet, and that seems to streamline the waste quite rapidly. So within 6 to 8 weeks, 8 days of fasting spread out over 8 weeks, the gut distension and how the taper comes in is quite dramatic. And for the guys that have distension that's not related to IBS, SIBO, intestinal problems, it's related to visceral fat. It seems that frequent fasting, albeit 1 to 2 days per week, is a great way to remove the visceral fat and get that stomach down. But after a couple of rounds, it can be quite brutal. I would say in that context, it's A or S tier because it seems to speed it up the fastest and cost the least because you don't need to do any testing, obviously. You just need to keep your fucking mouth shut for a day, once a week. And then if you schedule that after a refeed, where you have a clean refeed, of obviously with foods that don't irritate your stomach and cause digestion the next day, it can make a rapid change to your physique. Yeah. But generally speaking, I think fasting is kind of B tier because you can do it frequently. But if you do it frequently, it can be S tier for some people. And because, again, it removes the visceral fat. Next one is small multiple meals per day. So instead of 4 bigger meals, you have like 8 tiny meals, which means you're in the kitchen the whole day doing dishes and cooking. But it does help with distension. Now, I feel that this is more beneficial during off season than during a cut, because during a cut, your food volume is down anyway. Do you guys have any experience with this or any opinions?
I mean, I would still recommend most guys are doing smaller, frequent meals. I'd rather 6, 8. Like most of the guys that come to me that are eating 3 meals a day, at some point you got to change it. It's just not doable, right? And even just to get the protein in. So what are they going to have 75 grams of protein at a meal 3 times a day? Mm-hmm. It seems ridiculous. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want your blood sugar to dip? Why would you want your energy to dip? Why would you want to force? But even if your calories are low, eating 3 meals a day, meals are still bigger. You just don't, I don't know. I don't think it makes any sense. There's no science there, right? It's one of those areas that there's literally no science to show that meal frequency, makes really any difference. But anecdotally, there's a reason why pretty much everyone that looks good in our industry probably eats 5 or 6 times a day.
Yeah.
Right. And it's been that way since the 70s.
Right. What do you guys think about, the guys that say I can only eat 3 times per day, so can I do 3 meals and 3 shakes?
I do 3 shakes.
Yeah? Okay.
I've done it for 37 years. I digest it.
Yeah. What are your shakes looking like?
Whey iso and carbohydrate powder.
Oh, wow,
But
really?
that doesn't mean that everyone's going to digest it. I don't have the time. Like I can't.
Yeah.
That's just what I've done. I've eaten during prep when I'm super hungry. I'll do more whole food because it keeps me fuller. Mm-hmm. But especially because my calorie requirement's higher than most people, there's no way I can stomach that much food.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Because your baseline is what, 4,500, 5,000 calories?
Something like that. So it's easier for me to drink some of it, and it's faster. It takes me 3 seconds.
Right.
To do.
You don't have any digestive issues because, like in your saliva, there's some pre-digestive enzymes, right? And that help with digestion. That's why they always say chew your food. And that's what I say with a lot of guys that drink shakes, that digestion eventually takes a toll because the digestive enzyme in the saliva are not there, and it's processed food basically.
Yeah,
but simple food.
I mean, I'm still eating 3 other meals where I'm chewing.
Right.
Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. That seems to be the average, and it's been 4 decades doing that. So,
so you can get away with it. Yeah. Yeah, but some people seem to struggle with it.
I mean, I'd rather someone do that than just not get their food in, right? Guys that just can't seem to I can't hit my protein requirements. Well, then drink it.
Yeah, and then 3 shakes it
and
is.
also go the other direction. I think the messaging of, meat and rice, meat and rice, meat and rice, meat and rice, that's garbage. Like the outside of energy, what is good for you in white rice? Right? White rice also only sits in your stomach for less than an hour too, no different than carb powder. So it's not like it's keeping you any fuller. There's no nutrition. There's arsenic in rice, right? You really want to eat large quantities of arsenic?
Oh, that's why it's good to have like multiple carb sources, multiple protein
sources. But my point
sources.
is like the narrative out there is so extreme one direction or another. It's never like eat a balanced diet, right? Different carb sources. Everyone's like,
but you want to look extreme, so you got to do extreme.
But that doesn't necessarily create an extreme look. Again, if guys need to eat 6,000 calories, rice is probably an easy way to get that in.
Yeah.
But like when you're dieting, I wouldn't eat white rice when I'm dieting. I'd be starving.
Yeah, maybe around post-workout.
Potatoes, sweet potatoes, oatmeal, things like that is what I'm going to consume. Whole grains, those kind of things, fruit, more vegetables.
Yeah, it's more filling. More
and as a percentage of a whole, the amount of guys that I deal with that need to eat a huge amount of food, you're talking 10%.
Right.
Right. Most guys need to eat less.
It's less people than people think that actually
most guys eat weight. It ain't a food issue. Yeah, the quality and the composition of their diet is probably off in the general population, but it's generally not a quantity of food, right? There's a reason why obesity runs rampant. Most people are eating too much. They don't need to eat more.
Right. So where would we rank the small multiple meals? Where would okay.
I don't know what Dean. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about food volume, like you've touched on. I guess if you come out from the other side, though, in a 24-hour setting, if it was smaller meals, but for example, say the FODMAP content of the food overall in that 24 hours was the same, or the whatever 16 hours of eating was the same, the smaller meals would still add up at the end of the day in terms of like the non-digestible or fermentable carbohydrate load going into the gut. So for someone who has distension or like bubble guff from food volume and not having the correct stomach acidity to break down what's in a meal in one big large meal, the smaller meal would probably carry through on that side. So yeah, I'd agree that it does have benefits. Smaller food portions can take stress off the GI, but we go back to dysbiosis being one of the things causing your bubble go. You're probably still going to see by the time you get to meal 7, you're starting to think, well, how come my gut is so distended?
Yeah, the cumulative effect over the day. Yeah, it's still adding up.
Yeah.
And it stretches out like your TVA and stuff, right? Too much food volume.
Right.
Like a lot of the reason why these guys, these bigger pros have distended stomachs is because of the sheer amount of food they eat.
Yeah.
Right. They're just in the off season, they're just stretching their gut out, day in and day out. And they don't train that. So it's, and vacuums aren't required. So these guys just let their guts grow.
Yeah. So this is exactly the second point I wanted to bring up: vacuums and training your transverse abdominis. Is that permanent or just better control, making you look cosmetically appealing? Because in my opinion, it doesn't change your intestinal size and solves the issues, but it gives you so much control that you look better.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference to work
it makes a big difference cosmetically. Yeah.
When you're standing, when you're sitting right now, you're consciously holding your stomach in. You're not just letting it hang out. You do that all day.
I'm letting it all.
Are you? Nice.
I only control it when my shirt is off. At the beach and in the bedroom. And the rest of the time, I'm just chilling. No, I got it tight. Just joking. No, I really like vacuums for the control. Again, vacuums are not going to fix issues with your gut, but if you got your gut under control, then it can make a big difference, right? Pulling in a vacuum when you don't have any intestinal issues, man, it really complements your physique. And that's something you need to train. So I think if you're currently untrained and you have a good waistline, it can be S tier for so many guys. And it can be C tier if you still have issues and just mask the distension that you have. We saw it with Nick Walker, for example. He had great stomach control this weekend at the show, and he looked insane.
Well, his worst stomach performance, he had 6 cheeseburgers before he got on the spool.
Right.
I shit you not. That's what his load was. Like,
I know.
Why any coach, I'm not insulting him, but why any coach would think that 6 cheeseburgers is a winning look. You're going to the beach, you can eat 6 cheeseburgers before you go to the beach?
No.
One, it's unpredictable, right? You don't know what's in that food. You don't know how it's cooked. You probably haven't had cheeseburgers in 20 weeks. You're going to take a risk doing that before you get on stage. He's lucky he didn't shit in his pants.
Yeah, there's levels to the shit, right?
I don't know, dude. You're at that level, if you're coaching athletes at that level, you should know better than that kind of shit.
I know.
Most of those big guys don't need more food. It ain't about filling out. There is no more filling out. They're big.
Filling out you do before
2 days before
the day of the show.
If you need it. Some of these guys don't need more food.
No, they're full already. They just need to, step on stage stress-free.
Less food, small stomach.
And if you add a prejudging with 5, 6, 10 rounds of comparisons, yes, you might need to reload a little bit because you depleted a lot of glycogen. But then at least for prejudging, you looked fantastic.
Correct.
Dean, did you have any food before prejudging at your last show?
No, 0.
No. Could you pull a nice deep vacuum?
I could, well, because obviously I done classic bodybuilding. That was a small little, like, again, it goes back to like other years when I was doing classic. I had to really struggle with keeping everything tight, obviously with the inflammation. But same again, what sort of saved me in 2022 was every other year I ate on show day. 2022, I chose not to eat. And so my stomach control from less inflammation was so much better. So I've often said, like what Kurt said, you carb up earlier in the week and then you hold that glycogen going into the show. Like, what are you going to do? Burn through massive amounts of glycogen in, 3 days prior to your show from doing a heavy workout? Of course not.
Well,
and like the fact that glycogen synthesis takes about 36 hours, the cheeseburger that you're eating before you get on stage.
Peak 2 days after that.
You could also just take some sodium and a little bit of fat. And
this is what I'm getting at. It's the sodium and fat from the food that is creating a change within your serum blood to cause, obviously, higher blood pressure, which causes the vascularity to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not, people look at a big vascular physique as being impressive. The judges don't care if you're vascular or not. Takes a note, detailed bicep vein.
First
it
place.
It looks great. And I've heard people argue in the past, but I was so much more vascular on stage. I was like, yeah, but when you turn to the back, you're a lot
for the
softer.
fans. It's for the fans, I mean, I like when there's crazy vascularity as well, but it can also be very distracting. Nick's calves, right? Or Paul Dillette's chest with the fucking squiggly veins. It's like ew. The rest looks great, but it is a little bit distracting. So AJ's client, what is it? The Black Sultan? What was his name? Robert Timms. My God, man, he looked insane. Holy shit! Yeah, he needs to be bigger. No, he's fine just the way he is. I wouldn't mind waking up like that tomorrow. That was a great package, by the way. We'll put the vacuums in the TVA training just in S tier. If you got it, you got it. And then, where were we? Not eating on show day. Where do we classify this?
The other thing I think people miss is muscle glycogen is a one-way reaction. If the day before a show, you shouldn't be exercising. You can't get flat. It can't come out of your muscles. If you're full 2 days before, you're still full that day. When guys are like, I woke up flat. You don't wake up flat. You woke up without a pump.
Woke up dehydrated.
Yeah, or fluid. It's not flat. You can't lose muscle glycogen. It doesn't supply blood sugar. Your liver does.
No. And it's not like you're posing like a million different times, Yes, prejudging can be.
You should just be laying down.
Yeah. Just chill out, reduce the inflammation. The posing should already be done. You don't need to continuously pose the whole day, But the only thing that would be energy demanding is walking around backstage and doing prejudging.
Even, the handful of jellies prior to getting on stage, it's psychological. It's not really doing anything for you on stage.
Need those lollipops, man.
I think
a food volume control on show day. Where do we rank it?
from personal experience, I put as if you want to
Yeah,
have your
S.
best
S.
yeah, eat. What I view now is if you have to eat on show day, you eat to satisfy your psychology, like your satiety. But even then,
Hot
if you
take.
really want to win,
All the bikini competitors are going to be pissed that you take away their lollipops.
if you really want to win and you really want to, like, again, we're talking before about you take all the drugs to win. If someone turned around and said, I don't want you to eat on show day, and you argue back, oh, I'm starving, I need to eat, I'm flat, and you're trying to, tell them, not the secret, but having nothing in your stomach means that you're going to be completely flat in the midsection. There's going to be no distracting bubble gut or belly. That to me is like a cheat code that you're going to listen to.
No, I know. But
then you need your
Dean,
muffins.
the Mr. Olympia finals is in the evening. How you expect us to not eat all day? You can sleep all day.
Yeah, it's your job.
Bodybuilders figured this out a long time ago. You sleep all day during Ramadan. You eat all night.
Yeah, and you're that hungry that hungry on show day. You haven't been hungry for 20 weeks. Like all of a sudden, the hunger just kicked in. Now you're like,
I took the GLP-1s out 2 weeks before to make sure the digestion. They didn't learn how to control their appetite. Digestive enzymes. Let's go through that fast. I would say a lot of people overdo the digestive enzymes and they take it every single meal and thus create a scenario where their body no longer secretes digestive enzymes. So, occasionally, yes. Every single day, no. Then it's definitely F tier because then you create some sort of dependency on it. But I think if you use them occasionally with meals that might be a little bit harder to digest, and then you need to match your digestive enzymes to the food that require them. Because taking digestive enzymes to digest lactose, which is basically cookie cutter digestive enzymes, for a meal that is meat, good luck with that. You need some pepsin, or maybe increase your stomach acidity with beta and hydrochloride. The best digestive enzyme I've ever used is Creole. Creon 40,000. So that has 40,000. Yeah. That one, it's a pharmaceutical, obviously. It's not an over-the-counter. Don't worry, my sources have them on sale with code Vigorous.
Pancreolipase, basically.
My friend Jose that used that with very good.
He's the one who recommended it to me.
I was going to say, that's where I heard about it is from him.
Yeah, that's because he needed it for his what is his pancreatic issues. Yeah. He has insufficiency. No, not anymore. And it's a great way to get over a food buffet because it literally helps you digest everything. Yeah, Dean, sorry.
No, I was going to say that it's for that pancreatine exoinsufficiency when you don't make enough pancreatic digestive enzymes like amylase, lipase. The digestive enzymes, they can be useful towards like FODMAP. So you can there's one brand called Intolerant. People can look up their products, but they have one that basically has you have things like obviously fructose that can be a non-digestible carbohydrate in humans. Obviously it's part of FODMAPs. It's called xylose isomerase, would be the enzyme that digests fructose. Most digestive enzymes don't have it. Intolerant, their whole company ethos is about undigestible carbohydrates. So they have a really good product if you're finding like fruits, vegetables that aside from SIBO, you might not have the production of those digestive enzymes. Bean Assist or Beano or whatever way you want to call it in the US that has alpha galactosidase.
Oh yeah.
That's what helps break down like the FOS that's in broccoli or whatever green vegetables you're having difficulty digesting. They can be useful if you're having issues with specific carbohydrates aside from like your typical like meat sources or fat sources. But crayon's quite powerful, like especially for high fat meals, because that's what it is. It's basically lipase.
Yeah. So where do we rank it? Like matched digestive enzymes.
If you had issues with your like say your stomach acidity, your pancreatic output, or just at a point where your food volume is really high and it's taken quite some time for that food to digest naturally.
During carb loading, for example.
I'd probably put it A, depending on the situation.
Yeah. Did you guys ever recommend the matched digestive enzymes during carb loading? I have.
Yeah, I think they have benefits. But obviously, when it comes to carbohydrates, if you're going to be boring and you're sticking with rice and rice-based carbohydrates because there's no gluten, it's basically a very easily digestible starch. You shouldn't need anything. But when people want to start adding in more exotic things for carb loading, like muffins and bagels and cereals, and that's when you might need to support the stomach a little bit better.
Yeah, because you have those competitors that are convinced, thanks to Chris Aceto, that they need those anabolic muffins. Oh man, I don't miss coaching bodybuilders at all. Next one on the list: things to increase intestinal lubrication. Tutka, Utka, ox bile, magnesium. Yeah, but that's the wrong direction. That's the jail. Toss my salad stack.
I prefer syrup.
Yeah. I remember when I went to jail for tax evasion, and magnesium citrate. We don't need to spend too much time on this. Where do we rank this? Because I do think it's beneficial, but not the end all be all.
A or B?
I would say B. Mainly because things like with bile flow, bile acids, it comes down to shock horror, your estrogen and testosterone balance.
That was next on the list.
Yeah. So you know that to me is what interferes with your bile flow.
Right. So
I did that once as an experiment. I dieted for vacation on purpose, and then I pulled my test and I took a milligram of Rimidex every day to see what would happen to my stomach with zero estrogen.
You brought all your food with you on holiday.
No, and then my stomach just started sticking out all the time. I couldn't pull it in. I had no bile flow.
Yeah, so all the food that you eat pre-holidays was actually with you on holiday in your stomach. Yeah. Yeah, so this is, I know I was coaching a lot of Thai bodybuilders, right? They would crush their estrogen the last week and they would all be constipated like crazy. And then, of course, use aldactone and all this. So you have to tell them to cook their rice in coconut oil to get a little bit of electrolytes back in. And put them on a little bit of, Tadka and Adka just to help with the bowel flow. A crisis management, man, in these third world countries. It's insane. So thyroid and estrogen deficiency, I would say, is a very good way to get yourself constipated, and managing that. Just the entire year, just having normal thyroid function and kind of top of the reference range estradiol, not too high. Did you get loose poop? You have too much bile flow, the watery bile. But I think it should be ranked very high, and people overlook that in their.
They don't understand it.
Yeah, they don't understand it. But I think it's honestly S tier. You could save yourself so many issues if you just have normal thyroid and estrogen levels, and estrogen you couldn't really replace with 7-alpha-methyl estradiol or methyl estradiol, whatever you go on mint and Dianabol. It doesn't really respond the same way. But you can replace thyroid with GC1 sobuterol. That has been shown scientifically to improve bile acid production. And I can attest to this, that, if you add in GC1 sobuterol at 100 micrograms, 200 micrograms per day, that intestinal lubrication is a little bit better. And that's whether with or without Tutka. So I would tell people to look into options like that instead of throwing the thyroid meds at it. Maybe consider sobuterol alternatively if you see that there's a thyroid deficiency, because sobuterol doesn't suppress TSH, so it's a little bit easier to recover from. And if you do notice that your thyroid levels start to slow down towards the end of prep. Yeah, Dean, any Any adjustments to thyroid and estrogen management and the tier that we put it in there?
No, I agree with everything.
All right.
Next on the list.
All right. Fiber supplements or fiber-rich foods, assuming it's not too high in the FODMAP. Where do we put it?
A.
Yeah, I think as your like, for example, a prep goes on, your food volume is going to drop, so your ingestion of fruits and vegetables might drop off also, and your dietary fiber requirements might also drop as a consequence. Soluble and insoluble fibers, aside from gut health, have some level of cardiovascular protection because you're pulling cholesterol out with your fiber into your feces. I would say, though, you have to be very careful in how you dose and pick the different fibers. So 5 grams of psyllium husk or metamuse, or whatever you want to call it, would be very different to 5 grams of inulin or 5 grams of apple skin fiber powder.
Acacia gum fiber, yeah. So
Acacia,
they all need to be, yeah.
You'll find, an easy test for someone who has dysbiosis is get them to take like 5 grams of inulin as a shake. And if all hell doesn't break loose within about 90 minutes, their gut is in a pretty good place. But as soon as that 5 grams of inulin hits the small intestine, starts fermenting, there's going to be some problems.
You don't want to do that while you're already constipated, because then you'll be farting out of your mouth. Yeah, so you need to, if you go the supplemental route, you need to be careful how many grams of each supplemental fiber you dose. Because again, some of them are not as well tolerated as other ones. Personally, I don't like fiber supplements. I just prefer to have a little bit of vegetables with each meal. And it seems that like salad or leafy vegetables generally digest better for people than the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or root vegetables like carrot. Carrot could be good, like the winter carrot, for example, or anything that grows underneath the ground. So I have kale with most of my meals, about 100 grams, and then additional vegetable on top of it, depending on what matches with the food source. So I have 100 grams of kale. I have 15 grams of chia seeds, and then 50 grams of sauerkraut. And that stack, it seems that it complements the probiotics in the sauerkraut and the prebiotics from the chia seed and the kale. If I eat that every single meal, just a little bit, my digestion is almost flawless. Because you're constantly topping off good fibers and good prebiotics, probiotics, without the need of any fiber supplements. Is it a little bit boring to have that every single meal? But now, being like mid-40s, that seems to digest the best for me with a single fart over the day. And because that's how you can kind of measure how much is fermenting in your intestinal tract, right? And then I have, some other kind of vegetables on top of that to kind of fill up to 200 grams. That works quite well. Again, everybody's different, but it's something I can highly recommend to people. Kale, chia seeds, and sauerkraut with every meal. And if you want to go with kimchi or something else fermented, sure. This just works the best for me. And I can pull a vacuum at the end of the day. But I don't eat like Kurt does. I eat like 2,800 calories. So I don't need to radiate my body up because it's always hot here. All right, so we'll put the fiber supplements and fiber-rich foods at A tier. Avoiding creatine monohydrate and switching to hydrochloride. Did you guys ever notice a difference?
No.
Between the two sources? Okay. No. So I notice a big difference. I get a little bit bloated from creatine monohydrate, and I always have. And I feel that it doesn't digest well. So I switched to hydrochloride recently. That's a little bit of a newer version. Gorilla Mind, shameless plug, has it, right? called Vigorous. It made a big difference for me, but it might be a less bioavailable source for skeletal muscle function. Creatine monohydrate is the.
Who cares?
Yeah, the creatine monohydrate is the best studied and the most the best creatine out there. And I think this, if you have a little bit of digestive issues with it, switching to hydrochloride might allow you to still get creatine in at the expense of muscle performance slightly, right? Do you guys tell your competitors to avoid creatine for X amount of days, X amount of weeks leading into a show? Do you do creatine loading leading into a show?
I don't.
You don't?
I leave it in. No, because if it's in there, it's in there. Why would you take it out? But like, you're just going to lose fullness.
Right.
It's not water under your skin, unless, like you said, you have a negative reaction to it. Then it could be water under your skin, but that's not from creatine itself. That's your body's immune system reacting to it. So in that case, I wouldn't use it. But there's too many benefits to taking creatine to remove it for no reason.
Right. So if there's a reason removing it or switching to creatine monohydrate would be, I don't know, C tier, middle of the line. But if there's no reason to change it,
it could be A.
Right. If it's needed, it could be
it's
A.
Not needed, then no, it has no relevance at all.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of weird, right? Like as needed A.
Yeah, it's right. It's a situational.
Yeah, for you, it's A
change.
or S tier. It makes a big difference.
Dean, any comments on this?
No, I think personally, Creapure or any of those like micronized creatine powders have always been fine for me, but I can see the logic. So, if it is something that's causing some level of bloating, it could be again just the pH of the stomach acidity, and that's where the HCl is probably something that's better suited to absorption in your stomach. So I can see the logic.
And that brings us to avoiding sugar alcohols, bubble gum, glycerol, protein bars. I mean, Quest protein bars are notorious for gut distension. Because they're like 50% glycerol, or what is it, glycerol monosteroid. I think like some people, like you always have these discussions, right, with competitors. They lace everything with, I don't know, like artificial sweeteners, and they have no digestion at all. They can have aspartame and stevia and what's the other one? There's another one, sucralose, right? Sucralose. Yeah, and glycerol, and it's not an issue for them. And then other people, as soon as they remove it, they get less watery, they get less distension, their digestion improves. So again, it's situational. But it is worth looking into for people who suspect that it might be an issue. And again, some guys overdo the sugar alcohols or chew bubble gum all day, and that might be contributing to their distension. So it's a little bit funky to diagnose. So yeah, I'll just put in A tier. If you have an issue with it, it makes a difference. But if you don't have an issue, then by all means, lace up your cream of rice leading into the show with, fucking...
Flav drops.
Yeah, Flav drops or whatever else. Like I was, who was that? Jose Raymond. I would always cringe when I see him like loading up for the show and you have a bucket of cream of rice and then like all this artificial strawberry jam, artificial flavoring goes in there. And I'm like, how the fuck are you not distended? Because my stomach would not agree with that stuff. So I'll put it in A tier if you suffer from it. This one is a little bit more applicable. Oral steroids.
Yeah.
A lot of people get digestion from that.
Well,
digestion
that's bile flow too, again.
Yeah.
Right? So you take diuretics, you take oral steroids, you crush your estrogen, right? You try to carb load with no fluid. Right? Your electrolytes are off. What do you expect your stomach, and you've eaten 9,000 calories in the off season and shit's all stretched out. What do you expect your stomach to look like?
Right.
I don't think it's the thing that causes the distension. It's that whole package. And no, growth hormone didn't do that.
Right. No. So would you avoid oral steroids for a while? Or like if everything else is addressed, the intestinal... Situational also, right?
I mean, I have some guys that I've used. I have other guys that I don't. Depends on what their physique looks like. I think that's like what Dean was saying yesterday. It's not a cookie cutter way to get a guy on stage. There's not there are certain things that have been proven over time that are going to work pretty well consistently, but that doesn't mean everyone does that shit. I have guys competing with no Tren, guys competing with no Winstrol. Other guys that you follow a certain pattern that you've done before.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So you would kind of have to
guy's in
see.
shape, if he's lean enough and he's ready to go and he's got some muscle mass on him, you don't need as many tricks. The tricks are for the
True.
guys who aren't ready.
True. So, like, I do know some guys that get distension from oral steroids, but is that the oral steroids exacerbating something that's not addressed? I think that's more likely than the oral steroid itself. It seems that it can worsen something that is not addressed. And then instead of blaming the oral steroids, you have to find the root cause of what's causing it.
Outside of bile flow?
I mean, the intestinal tract has androgen receptors. And of course, like Anavar, Trenbolone, Cialis, they're all notorious for changing your gut acidity. And of course, you can, increase your gut acidity with beta hydrochloride, apple cider vinegar, or taking these drugs out. But it seems that some oral steroids require a little bit more management to prevent gut distension than others. I don't know if you guys seen that. Like for me, oral Anavar or Trenbolone also always requires me to increase my stomach acidity.
Oral Trenbolone or injectable Trenbolone?
Injectable Trenbolone and oral Anavar. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it comes like you can use it if you also do this.
Okay.
And then you prevent digestion or intestinal upset. Like I don't get any digestive or distension issues from oral Anavar or injectable Tren, but I do notice that my stomach acidity has changed, and thus I need to supplement with beta hydrochloride. Like if I take Anavar and Cialis together, it's a recipe for disaster.
Normally what I've seen with stuff like Tren is acid reflux because of the histamine response. So obviously if you activate an androgen receptor on a mast cell or a histamine liberating immune cell, you increase the histamine content of, say, the stomach, and now the H plus the hydrogen pump is now pumping more hydrogen into the stomach, raising your stomach acidity and causing reflux. For the orals, like we covered that before, I showed the thing between like the bile acid flow and your appetite regulation and neuropeptide Y and cholecystokinin and everything else like that. I think if they are causing problems, it goes back to like the bile acids, the TUDCA, UDCA, etc., ox bile, that they're there to manage those problems with bile flow and bile acid, like bile pH of the small intestine. But I've never seen the two of them cause strict problems independent of one another. It's normally histamine with Tren or Anavar, Anadrol causing bile flow issues. And normally the two of them...
It exacerbates something. So if there's an underlying condition that's undiagnosed or unaddressed, then it makes it worse. And then you need to go to either fix that underlying condition or you need to add in something to alleviate what is now being more noticeable. That's
normally why if someone has, say, acid reflux with the stomach from, say, Tren, that we covered it before about proton pump inhibitors being like a no-go in that instance, that you'd rely on a H2 antagonist like pepsin or famotidine, Pepsid or famotidine, that would block the output of excessive H2 into the stomach, without interfering with your acid production specifically. So with a proton pump inhibitor, it just shuts it all off, and now you're in big trouble with one, not having enough stomach acidity now, so you're allowing the oral microbiome, like I said before, to swallow and pass into the small intestine. You don't have enough stomach acidity to properly chemically digest red meat, protein sources, milk proteins, blah blah. So when you start to see these stomach problems or gut distension problems result from using the androgens, you have to think very carefully on like what's the root cause, why do you have that distension?
Right. I'm not against proton pump inhibitors in the only instance when the gut lining has been ruined to such an extent, like from taking aspirin, for example, or having acid reflux for months on end, where the gut microbiome is so ruined that you need to kind of fast, take a proton pump inhibitor, and then supplement with glutamine to kind of restore that. And again, you can do that in as little as a couple days. And then you take the proton pump inhibitor out. But it's mostly just to kind of heal a wound that's internal. And there's still guys using aspirin for, I don't know, preventing blood clots and stuff. Baby aspirin daily, right? That's the old bro form lore. That's required on cycle. But that actively ruins your gut lining. And even if you supplement with glutamine, it kind of creates issues over time. So they take aspirin and Cialis thinking it's preventative, but it's actually destroying their gut lining. So yeah, that's like a very situational fix, but it's sometimes it's required. So oral steroids, Trenbolone, anything that messes with your digestion just forces you to look at the root cause. Can we classify it, or is it just something that we'll leave off?
It's hard to classify.
Yeah.
Probably
Let's just leave it off.
Yeah.
Right. Metformin. Remember when that was the craze? People still take that. And they wonder why 2,000 milligrams metformin bloats the shit out of them.
2,000 milligrams.
Yeah, 2,000 milligrams. Yeah, it really improves insulin sensitivity, bro. Yeah, because you're not digesting anything. You're basically fasting. Switching metformin to berberine for the guys that still take metformin. I think it should be mentioned. In my opinion, it's D tier. In my opinion, it's a no-brainer. But for the guys that are taking metformin, it could mean a difference in digestion.
Berberine causes, let me rephrase that. I was about to say causes dysbiosis. Berberine is antibacterial and antimicrobial in nature.
Yeah, that's true also. Yeah.
So you start taking a load of berberine, and again, this is like the simple test, like inulin. If you suspect you have SIBO, take 2,000 milligrams of berberine and see what happens after a couple of hours. If you've got dysbiosis and that is acting as an antimicrobial / antibacterial, once you start killing off the bacteria and just die off, out to the end.
Yeah.
Similarly, that's why like metformin causes changes to the gut microbiome and why it causes diarrhea. So they both have some level of toxicity to the gut microbiome. I don't know. This is probably another thing. Like if we were to classify natural herbal remedies to get rid of dysbiosis, like berberine, allicin, garlic seed extract, grapeseed extract, coconut oil, undecyclinic acid, keep going on and on and on. That if you do like a herbal remedy to take care of dysbiosis, and this is why I always find it funny that it's normally recommended that you keep rotating and switching all these herbs to stop the resistance. You haven't got a clue what you're doing half the time. You take berberine for 4 weeks. What damage has that done to your gut microbiome? Have you done a gut stool test to see the balance of your bacteria gut? No. So, and one of the stool tests that I like people to do, GI 360, they sequence the gut microbiome and test the pathogenic bacteria against like natural things and pharmaceuticals. And you see it all the time, things like Klebsiella, Morganella, these natural bacteria that live in your gut but become opportunistic pathogens are resistant to oregano, berberine, golden seal, uva ursi. And so people are taking these natural things when they think they have SIBO, and they're actually making the problem worse because the guy who's causing the problem, the guy who's causing the problem isn't being killed. Everyone else around him's being killed, and so he's going into their territory and going, "Well, you're just giving me more space to grow into." So when this comes back to the testing, I'd always say test, don't guess. Like, don't buy. And with supplement needs, I formulated a product called GutGuard, and GutGuard was basically designed to be used after targeted treatment. So you've done the targeted treatment. Here is a product that has all natural herbs and antimicrobials or whatever else that can help support the gut for a few weeks post, say, antibiotics, to ensure that what you set yourself up with the antibiotic holds whilst you're rebuilding and repairing the gut. It's not the first strategy of take this and your dysbiosis is going to be fixed. So when it comes to berberine, metformin, even metformin causes high histamine load in the gut.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now you're shitting yourself. So
you're better off taking both of them out or using them sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, this was the whole analogy years ago of you've got a high carb meal, take 2,000 milligrams of metformin before you go to bed to offset the hyperglycemia of your cheat meal. And I don't think it's as straightforward as that, on a mechanistic level. Longevity wise, we've covered before metformin. Yeah, if you want to take it to have an improved potential lifespan and how it works mechanistically, even then some people are going back on it as being a longevity compound.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think berberine upsets a lot more people's gut microbiome than they give it credit for. So
really? Okay.
For me,
yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
No, I take it once a week on my my off day, Sunday, 500 milligrams before bed. And maybe I should just remove it and eat a little bit better.
Well, from the AMPK side of berberine's action versus metformin working on the liver itself, they work slightly different in mechanism. One serving of berberine per week, I don't think is going to mess up your gut microbiome to the same extent as taking it every single day, or taking it in high dosages when you're eating high carbohydrate amounts throughout the day. Like, it sort of goes back to Kurt's analogy all the time of like insulin sensitivity and maintaining A1C and glucose levels. That a glucose disposal agent, ingredient, or supplement might have some benefit, but if your food quality and food quantity is completely out the window, I don't think any type of supplement you're taking with the food is going to offset the sugar content of the food.
Fix the root cause before you throw the supplements or drugs at it. Talking about drugs, cutting growth hormone out. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's like, fuck this. We've had these discussions. Like, high dose growth hormone is causing distension,
it's
but
28 inches.
Yeah, no, not yours, but
I'm just saying. And I've been on nothing less than 3 milligrams of GH for 4.5 years. Doesn't make your stomach grow. It ain't. No, right. There's no medical documentation of stomach growth from growth hormone. Where it started was the short bowel syndrome. So when people have short bowel syndrome, they're missing a portion of their intestines. They don't absorb nutrition, so they're put on growth hormone. It's one of like the 3 or 4 actual medical uses for growth hormone. It doesn't grow the intestines to compensate. It allows better absorption of nutrition through the intestines. Mm-hmm. So even doctors get that wrong. They read the thing and they think it's somehow lengthening the intestines. It doesn't cause that. Increlux can cause gut growth, but you're bypassing the liver's function, right? That your liver can't generally produce enough IGF from GH that your pituitary is putting out in order to cause organ growth. It's not going to happen. In giantism and stuff, the amount of growth hormone is just so great that it's well beyond any amount that you can inject.
And it's a whole day, Yeah.
So it's like totally different. But no, growth hormone doesn't cause your gut to grow.
All right. So that's F tier then. Cutting out GH has nothing to do with gut distension or anything like that.
Yeah, I always found it funny when they were blaming GH bubble guts on insulin and growth hormone.
Yeah.
And never blaming the 9,000 calories like Kurt said.
Or all the other things we just discussed. And that brings us to the last one, cutting out the GLP-1s. I do think that that's a good idea, which I advocated since it came out. And then everybody was in the beginning, like I started talking about GLP-1s. Everybody's like, no, you got to be a blue-collar bodybuilder. You got to suffer to get shredded. Okay, fine. Be moody. That's fine. And then they pivoted. Now everybody's on a GLP-1, but they refuse to take it out before stepping on stage. And then they wonder why it's so difficult to carb load. which I told them, said, listen, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the show, you take the GLP-1 out, so you have normal digestion, normal insulin sensitivity and gut function, so you can actually absorb all of those carbohydrates and not get distension and bloating. And because again, GLP-1 is similar to metformin, they slow digestion, and it makes dieting easier. Great, but it also makes carb loading significantly harder. What are you going to do? Drink honey and essential amino acids during your carb load? It might be overdoing it. So I do think there's a place to cut the GLP-1s out 2 weeks, 3 weeks before stepping on stage. And I would go with the mile and say that that's actually required and S tier, because we had a period where a lot of people were suffering from digestive issues and flatness on stage, but with full gut. And we can go through the competitive pictures and call out people. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think with how they work and their mechanism of action at slowing down gut motility and intestinal transit. Personally, back in that last prep, I used it for, traveling, and then once I came back, that was the end of that. Otherwise, it's just going to be quite difficult to get 700, 800 grams of carbohydrates in early in the week with carbon up. If you've one, no appetite, and two, you've got basically the stomach motility of someone who's ate a massive meal. So it does make sense, especially even with the half-life. If some of these compounds have a 5 to 7 day half-life, you're going to need about 3 weeks for the drug to clear in a relatively appreciative amount. And even then, the double-edged sword to it then is the appetite rebound. So they've taken the compound, their appetite's suppressed, you take it out, you've now got 3 weeks to show day. Heading into like peak week, when they start carbing up and they have like 2 or 3 high days, their appetite could be much higher psychologically than physically. And then they start
learn to manage it. Yeah.
And they start binging on those couple of days, those couple of high days.
Yeah. There is a short-term solution now in the market. It's intranasal exenatide. So that's the oral one. The oral exenatide, they've several of the affiliates I work with, they made that into an intranasal formula. And you can basically dose as you go because it's in and out. That seems to work quite well. So that will be the alternative. Like as you're taking the injectable GLP-1s out, you could kind of manage your appetite as needed with intranasal exenatide. Drop that 1 or 2 days before carb loading, and then reintroduce that while you're carb loaded if you still need appetite management. That will be my suggestion if it's really an issue at that point. And otherwise, well, you have tesofensine that controls your appetite. They have a million different other appetite suppression.
I mean, even
Yeah.
Orforglipron, the other oral
the oral one. Yeah.
But I mean, I've had people who have taken that, and it's some of the sources are like 10 milligram dosages, which is way higher than what
it's way too high. Yeah.
Done clinically. That the appetite suppression from that capsule is way higher than what's seen with, say, like tirzepatide or retatrutide.
Yeah, and it takes a couple days to clear.
And their stomach is literally just closed, where they physically can't eat. There's even like water and supplements is sitting in their stomach.
Yeah, the intranasal exenatide is about a 4 to 6 hour suppression at 100 microgram serving. So it's very low. So you remember when intranasal buserelin or kisspeptin 10 was a thing to kind of restore LH and FSH, where you have to dose it multiple times per day. So that's kind of similarly how it works. It's like a 15 to 25 microgram microdose that lasts a couple of hours. And then with the intranasal kisspeptin or buserelin, what was another one? You would need to dose that multiple times per day to kind of keep secretion going. And the intranasal exerelin would be multiple times per day or as needed to kind of kill the appetite acutely, but then not have long-lasting negative effect on your digestion. So that will be an alternative for the guys that really can manage it, which I totally understand. Like if you're on these GLP-1 drugs for an extended period of times, you have zero appetite management. You literally turned that off. Not only did you turn your digestion off, but you turned off your mental capacity to control your appetite. And then it comes back with a vengeance when you take that out. And that would result to binging for sure. And that pretty much brings the tier list to a conclusion. So as a reminder, in S tier, we have a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, SIBO, celiac disease, lactose intolerance, or just any kind of diagnosis. And then there could be a food allergy test, an intolerance test, stool examination, and then ultimately leading into an elimination diet, because now you have the data of what you need to do to kind of get your gut microbiome and your digestion distension under control. Vacuums, training the transverse abdominis, fasting on show day, thyroid and estrogen management, keeping that nice within the reference ranges and completely functional. And then cutting out the GLP-1s at a certain amount of weeks. That's all S tier. At A tier, we got small multiple meals, digestive enzymes as needed, fiber supplements or fiber-rich foods as needed, right, with portion control. If needed, switching creatine monohydrate for hydrochloride. But again, if creatine monohydrate is not an issue for you, it doesn't cause intestinal water or digestion, then it's not an issue. Then it's basically F tier because you don't need to change that. Same for avoiding sugar, alcohols, or bubblegum, or glycerol, or protein bars, right? If that's not an issue, it's F tier. But if you do suspect you have some digestive issues and distension from sugar, alcohols, then it will be A tier to kind of remove that. B tier is fasting, whether that's once per week or 1 week every 3 months or as needed. Tatka, Atka, oxbol, magnesium citrate, or anything else that improves bowel flow. And that's besides thyroid and estrogen management. C tier, we have nothing. D tier, we have switching metformin for berberine and using that sparingly and occasionally. A tier, we have nothing. In F tier, we've debunked this during the growth hormone deep dive, is cutting out the fucking GH.
Yep.
Just leave that in and do everything else first. And if you're still distended, maybe you shouldn't step on stage. Bro.
Yeah, powerlifting is always an option.
You can always be a powerlifter. And hey, Maruts Pitsanovsky looked like a fucking freak. You remember that guy? The Polish guy? Man, he had abs that looked like stones. I mean, he had distension greatly, but he looked like a freak, that's for sure. He wasn't cutting out the GH. That's for sure. Anything else we should add to this tier list? This is what I came up with, and I added some things based on our discussion. Anything else? Any final words?
No, it's just a combination of all those habits together that it fixes it, right?
Yeah,
don't get too fat in the off season.
And don't neglect.
Oh yeah. Actually, we can classify that. I fucking agree.
Well, that
Kurt,
and app,
you open the door there. App training. Yeah, but it's like vacuums and transfers.
No, but still, you should make your abs strong. I got my hernia from not training my abs. Guys like, oh, you don't need to train your abs if you deadlift and squat. That's full of shit.
Yeah.
No, train your abs directly, just like every other muscle.
So ab training, where do we, besides vacuums and TVA, is that S tier, A tier?
I don't know, BA, whatever.
BA, Dean?
Yeah, I'd say B. If you're doing your TVA and your vacuums and your planks and everything else, but still, you still have to have good mechanical control of your abs for the TVA to work properly as well.
Yeah.
So.
And then not getting fat as fuck during the off season.
Yeah. Then you're just stretching your stomach out, and then you're going to diet more. And then you need GLPs, and then just this vicious cycle.
I agree. Staying in shape is S tier.
Yes.
Don't turn to a fat slob.
Yes.
Staying in shape year round, bitches. No glory bulks. No golden bulks. That's a thing of the past. All right, and then we can cut that off. or I can close that tier list off. I think next month. What should I was thinking about this earlier, but now I completely forgot. What should we do next month? I don't know. I'll remember somewhere during the week. And otherwise, we can always do the Olympia pre-show. Right? It's 2 weeks before the Olympia. I'm sure people would love our opinion on the competitors. We'll make a lot of friends and enemies. Well, we might be able to spill some beans on the competitors that we talk to off air. Might have some insights. Anything else we'd like to add to this episode of Gut Distention, or are we pretty much done?
I think that's it.
That's pretty much it, right? All right. Perfect. Then I'm going to roll because my wife wants to watch the finale of, what is it? Not Dungeons and Dragons, the Game of Thrones spin-off.
Good. It's more important than this.
Yeah, it's more important than this. We can find The Intolerant. I linked it down below. That what Dean mentioned. And Kurt's new website, Optimized Man. It's all linked down below in case you want to subscribe and watch that video series. I'm sure it will be highly informative and insightful because you have a lot of experience. I'm looking forward to watching it myself. Guys, this was thank you. 2 years and many more to come. We'll see you guys next month. There's no holiday scheduled. We'll make it work in between the Olympia and stuff.
Yep.
All right.
See ya.
Peace out.
Thank
See ya.
you.